Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Shivangi Walke. I am the founder of Thrive with Mentoring, and I'm joined here by a super funky woman. Her name is Santha John, and Santha is based in Hyderabad. She was the managing director of a very large advertising agency. So she's one of the few women I know who have very well broken the glass ceiling. A very warm welcome to you, Santha.
Thank you, Shivangi, and thanks a lot for that lovely introduction.
It's my pleasure. You know, you have this really funky San Francisco bridge behind you, and it's really looking as if you're in a movie frame. So I don't know how you've done that, but we're going to live with that.
Maybe I'm in San Francisco. But anyway, let's talk about the Me Too movement, Shivangi. And our talk yesterday was very, when you notice that when we talked about, can I talk about all that? When we talked about it yesterday, you had another point of view, which I thought was very interesting.
Yes. And that's what I wanted to bring also to our audience, you know, thrivers, non-thrivers, women, and both men, because I know that there is a kind of a narrative that is forming in the media nowadays around Me Too. To be very honest with you, Santha, why Me Too and why now? You know, why did I ask you, let's speak on this topic? I mean, it's been around for a year now and people are a bit jaded with it, right? In my world, you know, Me Too became very alive last week, actually, when there was a professor from the university where I worked, where I studied back in India, TISS, who was brought into the limelight by a former student. You know, something that happened 12 years ago, and now, of course, everything is up for questioning. You know, is this happening in academic institutions, etc. So for me, again, that topic has come to life, and with somebody, you know, that I knew and that I studied under. So it became live again for me, and that's how we started talking. And I was very, very curious from your point of view. How do you look at this movement? And we would like, later on in the conversation, I would really like to, you also to express your point of view around what women should do, what men should do, because I think we keep hearing about this, but when it comes closer to us, we don't know how to react to it. Till it's the news in the newspaper, it's a different thing.
Yes, Shivangi. And, this morning, I talked to a few men to see and if I could get another point of view. And there were lots of points of view, I can tell you. But one thing it is very clear is that women can't have their cake and eat it too. Okay? So because the men said, we'll be very careful to even compliment, even to say something. Then I was reading up in HBR, for example, they said you can say you're looking good in that dress or that dress suits you, but you can't say you look hot in that dress, that sort of thing. Okay. But having said that, I think what we were talking about earlier made a lot of sense, that sometimes we give a little advances, in India at least, maybe I shouldn't talk about only India, but the world over, men need a little push to go ahead, isn't it? They are decent men.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about that wild lot who have to do it anyway. Otherwise, they get a headache. Anyway.
I know headache in another way that women use, but yes. Yes. Yeah, no, but that is true. I mean, that narrative that you see, and, you know, I do a lot of reading on this and HBR, you know, what is legally defensive, what is not legally defensive. And there is this thin balance, isn't it? Because in a way, we do want, both men and women. We are sexual beings, and there is also, that attraction that exists between men and women that also makes working, etc., a little bit fun, you know, at work. Otherwise, it would be so boring, right? But I think that's the thin line, you know, what gets crossed. And what I would like to explore with you is also this notion of consent, because I think that notion is probably not that well understood and well known. Right. But your point of view, what are you hearing from men and women that you're interacting with? You gave me lots of examples around how varied the views are.
Well, for one, the men said, finally, like one particular man who I talked to this morning, he said, when you come, I mean, this is very bad to even repeat to you, but he said that why they obviously did it for some kind of advancement. And if they did that, then why should only the man be punished? Yeah, he did say about an HR head in his company who allowed one woman to sleep with him and do many things. And finally, he didn't give her the promotion she wanted. And then she stood up. And then he was sacked, the HR man. And she was, continued there. But that's not the case always, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there is everything that happens in the spectrum, right? On the one hand, you have, accepted norms in the industry, and, both men and women are complicit to that. And there is a lot of consent of two adults. I think you told me yesterday that even if there is consent, that might be still illegal in many places. In other places, when there is consent between the man and woman, then it is not illegal. Then at the other end of the spectrum, you really have, and I think that's what I want to focus on, and that is the power imbalance, right? When there is a power imbalance, especially if you have somebody who is in high power and then a low power, like a student in, a well-known university, and also younger women and men, actually, they do not even know how to handle this, right? So there is maybe some kind of halo around the authority figure, and then some of these non-acceptable behaviors happen, which are sexual in nature, and then either the man or the woman, they're completely confused and don't know what to do. So in a way, you have that slight attraction to somebody higher power who's showing you affection in whatever nature it might be. And the other hand, you're also very, very scared that this is going to impact your grades, it's going to impact your career, etc. And the third, because it's probably happening for the first time, you have no idea how to deal with it, right? So everything sort of gets confused, and I think that makes things very difficult.
I quite agree with you. And one way of first of all, the man has to be a gentleman. If he is not a gentleman and he is that other weird variety who is doing it regardless of whatever. But I would say in defense of men, I would say a lot of people are also looking for didn't we talk about how affairs start? I mean, they need something. So similarly, if they are gentlemen or they are nicer people, they are waiting for some kind of encouragement from both sides, isn't it?
Yeah.
Therefore, we as women may give that encouragement unwittingly, or may not want to go the full hog, and they don't understand that. So that is also a problem.
That is true. In your, and I know that we discussed a few examples of, some live examples that you know of, or even your experience. What can a person do, when they register that there is some behavior which is unacceptable, but they don't have the language for it? What would you suggest they do, Santha? Let's say somebody joined an organization, couple of months, things are going well, and now suddenly from some superior, maybe not direct boss, maybe the boss's peer or it's something, they're getting this, unwanted sexual attention. How could they handle that? What would you recommend? Typically a younger, but actually, I mean, we know from Me Too, it happens across, all age brackets. Age is really not the deciding factor. How can one handle this undue attention?
But that's just it, the right time. It is, everyone can now report.
Yeah.
Earlier, you couldn't report.
Yeah.
So that is the first great movement, that people can report. And once it's reported, everyone has to take it seriously. Earlier, you were told that you were
shamed. Yes.
Shamed.
Yeah.
What was the term that they used?
Slut slying. Yes. Yeah.
And either you were drawing attention to yourself and things like that. Even today, about 20, I would give this advice to everyone: is somehow get it in writing, or somehow get proof. Either record it, or get an SMS, or talk.
Yeah, I mean, that is, I mean, from the legal point of view, that is the defensible thing, right? And I mean, we hear of so many stories in Google and Amazon of, people writing SMSs or WhatsApp messages, and then you can just broadcast it on Twitter, etc. And it's written proof, right? It's coming from one device of the predator to the victim, and it's defensible. But a lot of the things, I mean, of course, everybody who wants to do, this kind of thing, not unknowingly, but well planned, they also know about, how this works. So they're also probably not going to do so much in writing. So it's really happening maybe in verbal conversations, right? And once you get that, what would be a good way to respond? Because I think that people are so confused. I mean, so many women, they're so confused. First of all, they're shocked. Then they're confused, and then the fear kicks in, right? And we all know that when fear kicks in, your emotions go high, and you typically go and react in a way that is, not good, that is not good either for you or the other person, but you really feel that you're doing the right thing. And it becomes, I mean, I speak about crucial conversations in a completely different way, but this is also a crucial conversation, isn't it? That somebody has said something which is unacceptable to you, maybe also in a group setting or in a one-on-one setting, and you need to address that. What would you recommend as the path of action, Santha?
I would say that we are talking about different situations. One was, you said that very young a student who cannot seem to reason.
Yeah.
The other, a kind of a male boss.
Yeah.
And if it's a male boss or something like that, then in the workplace.
Yeah.
Let's talk about workplace.
Let's talk about workplace. Yeah.
Yeah. Then is it possible to turn it around and tell him? For example, I think it was in HBR I read that someone said, look, I know your wife, and I would rather not do this. Let's not do it. Let's not go there again.
Let's not go there. Yeah.
Let's not go there again. And therefore, you give him the way out. And plus, you keep the maintenance, you keep the relationship alive, because you have to meet him tomorrow and you have to continue working. So that's what I would do, or turn it into a joke, or turn it into a friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think being assertive is something really important. And I mean, coming back to Thrive with Mentoring, and you are a Thrive mentor, Santha. I mean, one of the things that one can definitely do is to bring up, because there was some taboo and shame associated with it. So nobody really spoke about it, right? And you didn't know whom to speak to, because you couldn't really trust somebody maybe inside the organization. So I think speaking about these things with your mentor is such a liberating thing to do, right? That you speak about those things that have occurred, and then actually strategize with your mentor. Okay, how am I going to handle that? Because depending on the power imbalance, maybe the response that you have is going to change.
Doesn't every company now have to have a board to listen to such things? And the board comprises of at least one woman. This I know. And so there is someone to talk to, and if they don't take action, they are liable for problems. So I think the scenario has changed from that sense. So it's good. Everyone.
I agree. And I mean, of course, there are the Vishaka guidelines. You have POSH training, prevention of sexual harassment trainings happening in a lot of corporates, etc. I think the challenge is much more the knowing doing gap. So you know that there are all of these things that are happening, but when it happens to you in the moment, you don't know what's the best way to handle. And I know that a lot of women and men who might be victimized actually do not want to go on all of these formal channels, right? Because the formal channels, they create exposure, and most people don't want that exposure. That's why I think one of the ways I was thinking also was it might be easier for them to speak to an unbiased mentor around this is the sort of thing that is happening. And I mean, I would definitely encourage the Thrive mentees have the benefit also of having Thrive mentors for all women who probably have also experienced this in some way or the other. So please, do not feel inhibited bring this topic up. It is an important topic to speak about, and you are in a very safe space to speak about with your mentor, because I do know that people don't want to go the the board and the committee way, because then everything sort of gets splashed out, and most people don't like that. I mean, that's why they try to keep everything hidden, right?
But Shivangi, there is also some little area where you have to speak up for yourself. Yes. Not in wide forums, but at least on a one-to-one.
Undoubtedly. That skill of assertively, saying a no and being very, very categoric about it, saying this is the sort of behavior I will not tolerate. This has happened for the first time, and I can imagine, that there are two people here at play, and, I might have, and I think it's fine to admit, right? I might have given some indication which made you go the next step. And I apologize for that, but this definitely has to end here, and let's reconnect on a professional basis, right? So the capacity to have the language, have the authority and the confidence to say that, I think that is something we of course want to nurture in women, everywhere. Definitely. I mean, I've had multiple conversations with women on this topic.
And Shivangi, last but not least, even though it is only, we are talking about Me Too, but in life in general, you have to speak up for yourself a little bit. To one person, if you say, I am dealing with a person who cannot speak, that is why I'm talking from the heart almost. I'm saying is, you cannot say, he, she knows. No, they don't know till you say it.
I think that's really a very good point you make. Sometimes, and we're not talking about those predatory behaviors who are doing this planned and who've done this with multiple people, right? We're talking about those single case people, who themselves are not sure and are doing some activity which maybe is, crossing the line, right? I think that's where it becomes really important to give them, I mean, it's a little bit like feedback, this is one kind of behavior that is unacceptable. There might be other kinds of behaviors that are unacceptable, right? We all are shocked when we do our first 360 degrees feedback and people tell us that we are perceived like this, maybe too aggressive or maybe too timid, whatever it is. I think that is the gift of feedback. And just to say, of course, they know what they're doing, maybe they do not know, maybe they're not registering it to the extent that you have, felt so victimized. So I think it is really important to speak about that, to feel the confidence and the necessity to speak about that. Definitely. Yeah. Great. Well, thank you very much, Santha. We will keep talking about this. I mean, we are both passionate about this. But
San Francisco.
Yes, from San Francisco. Have a very nice afternoon. Bye for now.